Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. There's an awful lot going on. Just minutes ago, the White House released a letter saying the president is inclined to declassify that Democratic committee memo and will work with the House Intelligence Committee to see if they can come up with a releasable version of it, much redacted. But that is not the only breaking news tonight. There's a lot more. The Russia story has suddenly become an FBI story, and it's moving faster than anyone anticipated. Just a year ago, all the smart people were mocking Donald Trump for being insane enough to suggest the Obama administration had surveilled, or as he put it, wiretapped his campaign. What a paranoid lunatic, they said. Get off Twitter. Yeah. Now we know what actually happened. The question at this point is, how many people in Trump's orbit weren't spied on by the FBI? Trump advisor Carter Page was placed under government surveillance in the fall of 2016 after the feds used uncorroborated claims from the Trump dossier to justify a FISA warrant. We know from congressional testimony that Page spoke with Trump advisor, Trump campaign manager Steve Bannon, while he was being spied on, meaning that Bannon was likely spied on too. Tonight, based on our own reporting, we can tell you that Carter Page also sent email messages to members of the Trump campaign during that same period. Presumably, the FBI intercepted those as well. Suddenly, it looks like the Obama administration may have spied on a significant portion of the Trump campaign team. Just how many people were surveilled and to what extent? How much did President Obama know about it? We still don't have the answers to those questions, though we definitely have the right to them. Oh, no, we don't, say Democrats. Asking questions is a sign of disloyalty to this country. The very people who once told us that spying absolutely never happened are now telling us the spying was perfectly justified and normal. Why? Because Russia. Okay, but the funny thing is, almost all of the Russian collusion evidence unearthed recently implicates Democrats, not the Trump campaign. Yesterday, we learned that, for example, Senator Mark Warner of Virginia was secretly sending text messages to a lobbyist for a Russian oligarch in the hope of making contact with the dossier author, Christopher Steele. Warner tried to hide that correspondence. I'd, quote, rather not have a paper trail, he texted to the oligarch's lobbyist. Now, traditionally, in Washington anyway, no paper trail is not an indicator of transparency. In fact, it's a sign of wrongdoing. Now, we're not saying that Senator Warner ought to resign his seat and face treason charges, and we're not saying that because we're not hysterical liberals willing to poison our international relations and misuse the justice system just for cheap political ends. But we do think that Warner's behavior is worth knowing more about. And so, by the way, is a remarkable new New York Times story, just published about 40 minutes ago. That story alleges that within the last year, American intelligence agencies paid a spy, apparently a spy working for the Russian government, $100,000 in American tax dollars in exchange for unverified and possibly fabricated information about President Trump. Now, why would our intelligence agencies use our money to do something like that? Why would they do anything like that under any circumstances? And by the way, what was the information they gathered used for? None of that is clear at this hour. Here's what is clear right now. The bottom line and what we've learned this whole week, the one thing worth taking away from a dramatic week in Washington, it's this. The Obama administration spied on a rival political campaign. There had better be a legitimate reason for doing that, but increasingly it looks like there wasn't. Fox Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry joins us with more on that Russia intel story. Ed?
Well, Tucker, this is just breaking this hour. The New York Times reporting that a shadowy Russian tricked American spies, actually, out of $100,000 last year. They promised not just information on Donald Trump, but to deliver stolen National Security Agency cyber weapons in a deal that this shadowy Russian insisted would also include, yes, compromising material on the president. Sounds like a spy novel. The NSA has been devastated by losing these secret hacking tools. So they delivered the cash in a suitcase to a Berlin hotel room in September, supposed to be the first installment of $1 million payout. Here's the kicker. The Russian claimed the information would link the president and his associates to Russia. But instead of providing the hacking tools, the Russian produced unverified and possibly fabricated information involving Mr. Trump and others. Bank records, emails, purported Russian intelligence data. Sounds a little bit like the Steele dossier. Several U.S. intel officials tell us tonight they made clear they did not want the Trump material from the Russian. They're insisting they never wanted this. He was suspected of having murky ties to Russian intel and to Eastern European cyber criminals. That's what they tell the New York Times. But it sounds like U.S. intel officials are kind of spinning after the fact because they were in negotiations. The NSA even used its official Twitter account nearly a dozen times to send out coded messages to this Russian. The Russians' eagerness to sell the Trump dirt raised suspicion among American spies because it was part of an operation to feed the information out into the United States intelligence community and pit U.S. intel officials against Mr. Trump. It was confusing because at one point this Russian dropped his asking price from about $10 million to just over $1 million. That raised alarm bells. Then he showed a 15-second clip of a video showing a man in a room talking to two women. He claimed it was Mr. Trump, but there was really no way to confirm that it was Mr. Trump with two women. It was a grainy video. It had no audio. And we're told that these officials were shown the video in the Russian embassy in Berlin. So this does sound like a spy novel. And as you were just saying, the president some time ago was suggesting that some U.S. intel officials were out to get him. People said this is crazy. That wouldn't happen. But now the Times is reporting tonight a remarkable story suggesting that they were willing to pay $1 million to potentially get dirt on the president. U.S. intelligence officials. They gave $100,000, the first installment, and the shadowy Russian took the money, went away without any dirt on the president. Tucker?
Pretty unbelievable.
Wow.
Actually shocking. Very badly written story, but you, I thought, summarized it very well.